Well, good afternoon. My name is Willie Lawson of the Willie Lawson Show, and I'm also the state coordinator for Patriot Action Network. We are bringing you a Google Hangout, a sort of a podcast of sort or a vlog of sorts of the happenings of political importance on the Liberty scene. We expect my friend Eric Odom to join us, and something amazing happened today. Something that I really don't think that a lot of people saw happening. Um, Mitt Romney, who had decided earlier, just a few weeks earlier, actually to drop out. I mean to to drop into the presidential fray of 2016, has decided to drop out. And what's amazing is that he's dropped out earlier than he dropped out before. It's just something that a lot of people didn't expect, and I am the guy who didn't expect it. I expected Mitt Romney to hang in and be Dick Nixon, the guy who wanted to be president probably more than anybody in modern times. So I really expected him to hang in, but apparently what has happened is some of Romney's major donors had decided to toss in their lot with Jeb Bush, and without that, Romney has thought that maybe just maybe that's not the way to go. So we're going to talk about that for a little bit. We're also going to talk about some of the other candidates. I want to get Eric's view on people like Rand Paul, people like Ben Carson, people like that. Are they really on the outside of this process looking in? And more importantly, and what I want to do as host of these broadcasts is to bring you into the fray, bring you into the discussion in a way that you know what, that gives you action, that gives you a way to push these things forward where you live. I think that so often we here on the right are we're inundated with information. Everybody's smart. Everybody's got something to say. Everybody's got something to bring to the table. Except a lot of times, what we don't do is act. We talk a lot, but we don't act, and that's why I was thrilled to be asked to be a part of the Patriot Action Network, because it's about action. It's about you and I deciding that we are going to do something different. We're actually going to get involved on a real level. We're actually going to decide that we are going to be a part of action, be a part of something that will change our communities. And the people at Patriot Action Network know, excuse me, that what we do around here is that we want to change your community. We often talk about we need to take back our country. We need to take back our country. We have signs, we have bumper stickers, take back our country. But the fact of the matter is that we can't control our own communities. Most of our communities are so out of control, giving your tax dollars to sports teams, movie makers, and whoever else shows up with some pipe dream of hope that somehow the municipality makes back the money they quote invest. Well, that's not happening. And we sit quietly while we don't participate in our city council elections, our county commission elections. We're all just a bother and just crazy about things like Common Core, but we've ignored our school board elections for years and years and years. We don't have conservatives on our school boards. Hell, for the most part, we don't even have Republicans on our school board, and suddenly we are all surprised that this insanity of Common Core is taking hold in our local school district. Of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, how could you not think? How could you not think that that it wouldn't? Seriously, how could you think that it wouldn't? We have allowed we have allowed this to happen by, by not, but not by not participating, by not being a part of the solution, by allowing these things to go, on without us. So there you go. So I hope to talk to Eric about all these things. I think that all this is extreme. I think all this is extremely important, and all of these things, figure in as far as I'm concerned. All these things figure in, and but we want to talk about the news of the day that I don't know if you I don't know if you've heard, but Mitt Romney, who ran and dropped out in 2008, and then managed 4 years later to win the Republican nomination for president, and lost, obviously. Got into the race early here and made noise about getting in, and has decided that he made the announcement today to not run for president in 2016. Now, is that a good thing? Now, I know when I heard the news, I was like you when that Mitt Romney was going to run. It was this, and I couldn't even help it. There was this audible out of my body, out of my spirit was, oh no. Some of you had a more severe reaction, but all I could think about was no, no more retreads. And that's the deal. It is I think it's a sad place. I think it's a sad place for Republicans, and maybe even a sadder place for conservatives. That when we're looking at 2008 elections and your cast of characters, and 2012 elections and your cast of characters, and they're not, and in 2016 your cast of characters who say they want to be president isn't really that much different. They're just not that much different. And it isn't even the type of person necessarily. It's the same people. And that's the part that is that for me is the most frustrating. It's the same people. I find that is probably the most disappointing thing. That it's the same folks. That's the part that, again, is the most disappointing thing. That it's the same people that we're looking at. Oh, we were looking at Mitt Romney. We were looking at that. We're even looking at Mike Huckabee. Sarah Palin has made some noise about running for president. So we're looking at a group of people, the same, those three people who are looking for the top job in the country, that was looking for the top job in the country in 2008. So what's that say? I mean, and now we have Rand Paul, which is Ron Paul's kid. We have a Dr. Paul in the mix. So is that, what's that say? What does that say for what the Republican Party, first off, and the conservative movement have been doing for the past 8 years? I don't know. You know what? I'm not so sure that it says anything all that positive about what we've been doing in candidate development and all sorts of, in all sorts of ways, that 8 years later we're dealing with, that we were potentially dealing with three of the same people who ran 2008, and dealing with one of the same guys, well, until today, that actually won the nomination 4 years ago. I always think, you know what, and I think now wait, I don't think the Democrats, I don't think the liberal left has done any better on those fronts. We're talking about their main horse in this race right now is Hillary Clinton, who, if you remember, ran for president in 2008. And they're really, other than the crazy woman who's a fake, American Indian, there's really no other Democrats that are really set to make a real run. So in 8 years, that's all that the Democrats have been able to produce for this run in 2016. That doesn't bode well for them. That doesn't bode well for them either. So don't think I'm just, I'm just kicking the Republicans in the butt. That's not the being. That's really not the whole thing. It's both major parties that I think that have failed, frankly, um, in in candidate development and I don't want to say reaching out, but deciding that they are going to look and sound different. Um, so that's the deal. Hang on a second. We're going to see if we can get Eric on. Let's see. I want him to give me a second here. I'm writing because what I can't do is talk and write at the same time. So if you just give me just a second. Accept. Hang on a second. Almost there. God, took me that long to spell two words. That's not good. That's not good. That's why I'm saying that, you know what, this whole idea of multitasking can't be done. You can do one thing and then you can do the next thing. You can't do more than one thing at a time. You can do one thing and you can do other things. So it is again extremely interesting that okay, well, there you go. It is extremely interesting that Romney has decided to dump out, but it's that's not really the interesting part of the story that he is dropped out. The interesting part of the story is that his donor base has dumped out. His, you know what, some significant pieces of his donor base have dumped out. That's the more interesting part of this narrative, I think. And in the AP story by Steve Peoples, it was, I'd say, it was deeply personal and even painful decision in 2012 on Republican presidential nominee. He insisted he could win the next election if he ran, but he announced his announcement followed a 3-week fact-finding effort that revealed a significant resistance to a third campaign. I think that I was not the only one that when we heard about Mitt Romney running again for president, that went, oh no, no. I think there was probably a significant amount of people who felt and who feel the very same way. I have no doubt. I have no doubt that Mitt Romney believes that he can, if he ran again, that he would get it all, that he would get it right. And now he's not running against Barack Obama. He's running potentially against first a fairly inexperienced Republican field, even with a popular governor like or former governor of Jeb Bush, John Ellis Bush, by the way. George did not name him Jeb. I think that's important. I think it's important that you guys get it because I don't want to look like that Florida is. I don't want you to think that that's Florida. I want you to continue to think that Florida is as hip as it actually is. It's not. It isn't. Florida's fairly hip. John Ellis Bush, or Jeb Bush, is, as you know him, a very popular governor, experienced governor, and popular in the popularly in the political range for sure. But outside of Jeb Bush, with his dad and of course his brother being president, the other folks who are who may be involved in this campaign may not have the juice necessarily to survive a presidential election in the way that maybe a Mitt Romney, who had developed quite a solid financial base, who in his fact-finding mission, don't get it twisted. He wasn't trying to find out if you and I wanted him to run, because if that was the case, as soon as he announced and saw our faces, and we went, oh, he would have known then. He would have known then. He was reaching out to find out if the people who write the big checks were okay with it. And what he found out after a month or so is that they're not. And on the line, on the Patriot Action Newsmaker line is my friend and my mentor and my buddy, Mr. Eric Odom from Liberty News. Eric, are you there?
Hey, Willie, I'm here. How you doing?
I am lovely. I am a lovely man with a plan. Listen, I was a little surprised today that Mitt Romney decided that he was done, that he was not going to try it again the third time. I was under the impression this guy was like Richard Nixon. Nobody wanted to be president more than Richard Nixon. I was under kind of the impression that Mitt Romney was the same kind of guy who would do whatever, who would run as many times as it took to be president.
Yeah, and if you look back at the results of 2012 and look back at some of the comments made by members of his family and advisors to his campaign, he was truly, in epic fashion, shocked at not only the fact that he lost that election, but that how badly he lost. I think he really, truly believed he was on a path to victory, and he truly believed that he was going to come out victorious that night. And I think that stuck with him ever since. And he really did want to be president, and not just so that he had the title president. And as you know, I'm not a huge Mitt Romney fan. I did cast my vote in his direction, but I can say that Romney. It's kind of like here in Illinois with Bruce Rauner, who was just elected governor. Bruce Rauner, Republican, is a big free market guy. He runs, he's worth, I don't know how many, hundreds of millions probably. Run an investment firm here in Chicago, and he turned down the salary as governor and turned down any kind of a benefits package. And he truly, I think, wanted to run for governor because he wants business to be able to thrive and survive in Illinois, and he wants to fix the situation. I think Mitt Romney, in a lot of ways, is the same. It's just like the Olympics. He went and fixed the Olympics, and is in disarray. Came in with his executive experience, and did for the Olympics what he's done for, I think it's Staples and so many other businesses where they come in and it's in disarray, and he fixed it. I think he really thought that he was going to be elected because people believed that he was going to go in with some ideas as sort of a CEO and fix things, and it just never sat well with him that he lost. And I think that the conversation that started over the last 4 to 6 weeks was certainly that he thought, okay, well, maybe I should take another shot at it. And I think we all kind of saw that in him, and I agree with you. I was a little shocked to see that today. In fact, the first headline I saw this morning is that he was going to meet with or discuss with donors his announcement to run. And then it was, not very long after, I think maybe an hour after I saw that headline, that he'd made the announcement that he wasn't going to run. So it's definitely interesting. I think a part of that decision is that the waters for someone that's somewhat moderate on a lot of issues are going to be very challenging this time with Jeb Bush in there. And Romney knows that in fact, I pulled some data on this morning writing a post. He spent out of his campaign $10 million in Florida on TV ads alone, and then had a super PAC spend, I believe, between another $5 and $7 million. So you're talking almost $20 million it costs to run TV ads to win Florida against Gingrich. And then he probably spent another 10 or 15 million just building a ground game in Florida for the primary. That's not even for the general election. That's just the primary.
Wow.
So when you've got Jeb Bush, Florida, and Marco Rubio, Florida, both Jeb Bush will be able to raise serious money, but certainly Marco Rubio will be able to raise a lot of money to run a pretty good election in Florida as well. I think Mitt Romney probably realizes that he's not going to be able to steamroll over guys like Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich this time, and just decided it probably wasn't the best thing to do.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? We have an interesting dynamic building. We have the student and the master possibly going out in the primaries in Florida with Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush. However, it seems like I read a post here recently that the Koch brothers have decided to put at least a good portion, or their donors anyway, a good portion of their money in Marco Rubio's pocket. and not Jeb Bush. Not that Jeb Bush is hurting and won't be able to raise his own money, because that's what they do. That's why we have a Senator Marco Rubio, is because the Bush money machine cranked up at the right time and just steamrolled the insane Charlie Crist. That's why we have that to start with. So that ought to be interesting. And you're right. I just don't see Mitt Romney being able to, quite frankly, survive that dynamic, because those two guys in the primary, especially if they both get to Florida, will suck every bit of oxygen out of the country, not out of the room, but out of the country, in this what'll be an epic student versus teacher battle. But again, surprised about his announcement. And but does that, Eric? Do you think does that mean that maybe somebody else will be able to fill that spot in that whole moderate Republican get along kind of? I mean, who's out there who would fill that spot now that Mitt Romney isn't going to run? Was there somebody on the sideline who was hoping he wouldn't run, so now they could have their shot?
Well, I think that Romney stepping out paves the path with gold for Jeb Bush. I mean, the only other sort of, I think, big national name, I guess you could say, would be Chris Christie. But I wrote a post today about the only 4 candidates that I believe can make it to Florida and beyond, and Chris Christie's not one of them. Chris Christie, his problem is that New Jersey's in shambles financially right now. He's been notorious for being cozy with Obama over the past 6 months or a year, actually longer than that, since Hurricane Sandy. And what exactly? When you look at Chris Christie, what does he have to run on? He doesn't. Okay, so he likes to get aggressive with people who oppose the freedom agenda. Fine, but for someone like Jeb Bush, with the kind of money that Jeb Bush is going to have, it wouldn't take more than 1 or 2 ads to completely devastate Chris Christie. That's the only other big name. Romney stepping out of there, I think, basically secures the establishment vote for Jeb Bush. And then in kind of a follow-up to that, I mentioned the post I wrote on actually my personal blog, ericodom.com, and Patriot Action Network. I believe I copied it over to that one as well, about the only 4 candidates I think that are going to be able to get beyond Florida, and even in some cases that's going to be somewhat miraculous, and that's Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Scott Walker, and Jeb Bush. And the reason for that is that in order to survive a Republican primary, you're going to have to raise and spend between 250 and 300 million just in the primary. And when you look at the states, you've got Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Florida. By the time you get to Florida, you had better be able to spend 5, 10, 15 million between your campaign and your supporting PACs in just TV ads. So there are other candidates out there, especially within the conservative ranks, like Ben Carson, who I think is a great guy. I think Ben Carson's going to have some struggles with some of his past statements on Second Amendment and illegal immigration. But you've got other candidates that are going to be a good part of the debate. But just like with Gingrich and Santorum, when Florida basically kills the guys who can't raise money, Florida is in such a tremendous position when it comes to these primaries, because and you're in Florida, so I've driven from Tallahassee to Miami. It's not fun.
Come on now.
Well, it's beautiful. I mean, it's a great. Florida. It's Florida. You can't complain about Florida. But I mean, the distance between Tallahassee and Fort Lauderdale. If you try to think about. I think a good example would be, imagine. So you have, I think, 4 million registered Republican voters in Florida, or at least there were 4 million registered Republican voters, I think, in 2012. Imagine that you need to try and get 50 plus 1% of the vote, right? So, and granted, all those Republicans are going to turn out for a primary, but let's just say you identified a number of people that you needed to reach out to. So if you're going in to set up a business, like not a political campaign, but a business, and you need to market your message to over 1 million people across a state as big as Florida, get beyond the TV ads. Think about setting up offices and direct field directors in every one of these counties, and then coordinating vans to go out and knock these doors, and having phone banks and mail houses to get into each of these voters' homes. It's not something that a candidate that doesn't have significant money and political cooperation, campaign infrastructure can accomplish in a state like Florida. So that's why I say these four candidates. I think Walker is going to pull big money. I think he's the 900-pound gorilla in the room right now, because he's got he's won 3 very expensive elections in the last 4 years. Against very well-funded, powerful opposition in the unions, not just Wisconsin unions, but the national unions came out against him in the recall election and his last election. He's going to be able to raise a lot of money. Ted Cruz is going to raise a lot of small donor dollars, because he has a very, his fans will crawl over glass to help him. So he's going to get probably a significant amount of the 10, 20, 30, 50, $100 donations. Less of the big figure donations that Jeb Bush will get. And then with Rand Paul, Rand Paul is Rand Paul. It's like Ron Paul. Those people will also crawl over glass to do whatever's necessary, and they'll set up their own infrastructure. They don't even need the Rand Paul campaign to set up their own get out the vote infrastructure. So I really think you've got those 4 candidates. I think Marco Rubio may be able to make a splash. I think the amnesty thing is going to hurt him. Of course, Jeb Bush has the amnesty problem too, but Jeb Bush isn't going to be marketing the same audience as Marco Rubio. So I think as it stands today, with Romney out, you're going to get to Florida with Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Scott Walker, and Jeb Bush as the key challengers with the biggest ability to actually be competitive in Florida. And then, if those 4 candidates can survive beyond Florida, then I think it's an open game, because you've got Walker, who can pull states like Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Iowa, and you've got Ted Cruz, who's going to kind of storm the South with Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama. Rand Paul could pick up New Hampshire, Kentucky, Nevada. So it's not a very clear path for Bush, as the media would have us believe, but it's certainly the case that Bush is going to probably have great success in Florida, force the other candidates to spend a ton of money, and if any other candidates can survive to Florida and get through Florida without being completely stopped, I think we'll have a very open and challenging primary that could be drawn out through the convention.
Well, that ought to be interesting. And when you talk about Florida, for those of you who don't understand what Florida's all about, Florida is the only real purple state. Registered Republican voters are outnumbered by Democratic voters in the state of Florida by almost 1 million people. However, we have Rick Scott, a Republican governor, and a completely and totally Republican cabinet, and Republicans control both the Senate and the House in the state of Florida. And you wonder how that happened? It happened by magic. I don't know. But the Republican get out to vote in the state of Florida is obviously formidable, and which really bodes well for Governor Bush. We still call him Governor Bush because I don't know if you know about this, Eric, but we are gooberish in the state of Florida about our governors. We are completely gooberish about them. We just love our governors. The only person who's not getting the same sort of love and respect as a governor in the state of Florida right now, who's doing a fabulous job, is Rick Scott, because he kind of looks like Skeletor and has the personality of this table I'm sitting at. But and I personally like Rick Scott. I really do. I think he's a sweet guy. I like the guy. He really is. But he doesn't come across that way. So, but you're right.
I'm guessing you don't like the Republican governors who switched to Democrat, right?
Yeah, did we have one of those? Yeah. The snake. The chameleon, the snake. Yeah, that guy. No, we don't. No, we don't really like that guy. And I'll tell you what, I had some personal meetings with him, and you know what? You've met people right away where you went, there's something wrong with that guy. Yeah, that's that dude there. But I digress. I think that Governor Bush in Florida, if those are the four candidates, will win Florida easily, because Florida, that Florida machine, that establishment machine, will come to life like it's never come to life. They have been waiting for an opportunity just like this to be put in front of them, and they will not disappoint. The I-4 corridor, which is that area for you people who are from around the country, that goes pretty much from the Tampa Bay area on the west coast across the state to like Daytona on the ocean coast. That is the area where most people come and settle. Is Tampa, Orlando, across to Daytona, over to the Space Coast. That's where most of the people in the state actually live, especially where most of the Republicans live, north of or south of the Panhandle. Most of the people in the state actually live in that corridor. So that's where you have to market to, and you have to market hard, and you've got to spend a bunch of money. If you don't have a bunch of money, you can pretty much forget it, which pretty much leaves out people like Dr. Carson, I think, and any of the other also-rans. At that point, if they even get to Florida, they won't have money to compete in Florida, because for the good or the bad, we get to decide it. My county, where I live, has decided who has picked the president correctly in the past 8 elections or something crazy like that. We are really, for the good or the bad, we have really been the canary in the mine. So you can tell, if you can win Hillsborough County, 600,000 or so Republican voters, if you can get those people to come out and support you, you have a shot. And I think that Jeb Bush does that. Now, I know that a lot of our friends, Eric, are freaking out that Jeb Bush, because Jeb Bush, with the conservative community, does have a problem with amnesty. He has a problem with Common Core. That's really where, as a matter of fact, while I have a second, well, I'll just take a second. How about that? Patriot Action of Florida is, I am blessed to be the state coordinator. We are trying to get together a lobby day to go actually lobby our state legislators and Governor Scott on issues that concern us, and one of the big ones is Common Core. There are a number of Tea Party groups that are headed to Tallahassee in the spring to do just that. And maybe in that we can sort of let the former governor know that not every Republican or conservative group is okay with Common Core, which is going to be a problem for him in the conservative community. But by then, I think that don't you think by then the momentum should be so great by the time you get to Florida? The writing may indeed be already be on the wall.
Well, I think it depends on how smart the other campaigns are. I'm not a great political mind of campaigns by any stretch, but I would have to think that Walker and Cruz and Paul need to be thinking about a strategy that isn't so heavily focused on Florida. I think that's one of the mistakes that candidates of the past have made. Gingrich was a little bit of an anomaly. I think South Carolina gave him a little bit of gas to go into Florida with, but he didn't really have the infrastructure. I mean, Gingrich went in with what's the guy down in Vegas who was funding a super PAC? I can't remember. I don't know if it's Sheldon Adelson or who it was, but he had a super PAC, and then he had a couple $1 million. I think he spent maybe $2 million on TV out of his campaign in Florida, compared to Romney's $10 million, and then he had the super PAC, but he didn't really have statewide infrastructure. So Florida was really just kind of a last gasp for Gingrich, because he had spent everything that he had trying to just win one of the states leading up to Florida. Giuliani was another perfect example. When McCain took out Giuliani, well, Giuliani spent all of his nest egg into Florida with the hopes of pulling something off, and then I don't even know if I think he may even have stepped out a couple days before the primary. If I may be wrong on that, but these with Jeb Bush, I agree with you. I just don't think any candidate's going to be able to beat Bush in Florida in that primary. And if I were the Walker campaign, I would be looking at Iowa. I'd be looking at South Carolina, especially because he has friends like Nikki Haley. And then I would be looking on beyond Florida to Ohio and some of those states where Scott Walker is going to do very, very well. and not go and blow everything you have in Florida, because you know that. I'm not saying that to. Of course, I am a Scott Walker fan, so I do have have an interest there. But I'm not saying that to try and help one candidate over the other. I'm just saying, stepping back and looking at it, if I didn't have a candidate pick, I would like to see other candidates go beyond Florida, and I think that would probably be the best way to do it, because, man, Jeb Bush is going to have a beast of a machine in Florida. And people can say, okay, well, Barack Obama won Florida, but if you look at the map, Barack Obama really only targeted that sort of suburban Orlando area that you were just referring to, and Fort Lauderdale and Miami. The rest of the state was dark red as far as the general election outcome in 2012 and 2008. So it really is statewide. When you look at the whole Florida and the Panhandle and everything, it's a very well organized Republican machine that Jeb Bush is very much a part of. So it's not just going to be the money; it's going to be the fact that he kind of has Florida locked up, and candidates need to be looking at, okay, well, if I can't do well in Florida, what's my strategy? Versus we're going to do everything we can and then try to compete in Florida, because that's where other candidates fail and lose.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think the only way for anybody else is to sort of give Florida. You want to put your best foot forward, because you got a lot. You get a lot of support. Even if you don't win, if you do well and survive it, there'll be a lot of support if you happen to win the nomination.
Oh yeah, you can't wave the white flag.
No.
Well, because you're going to have a major debate there. I think CNN did the last two, but you're gonna have a major debate there. Where was that? Was that in Orlando or Tampa?
It was in Orlando.
Orlando, that's right. Yeah. So you're gonna have a major debate there, probably a week out from it, and then all eyes and all media are going to be in Florida. So you've got to get in there and certainly try to. You don't just pass Florida by any stretch, but at the same time you don't let this perception exist that if you don't win Florida, you're out, because that kind of ends up being the case if you don't win Florida.
Oh yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, in 2012 at Presidency 5, the results turned out like they did. That Florida straw poll was actually won by Herman Cain, and I'll tell you why. Because Mitt Romney split. He left before the weekend was over. Everybody else hung around, and as
I forgot all about that.
And as you went to other things and gatherings, you could just feel it was palpable. You could feel the Herman Cain thing starting to swell up, and there was nothing to stop it. There wasn't a Mitt Romney there to stop it. So by the time Saturday afternoon rolled around and it was time to take the straw poll vote, everybody was shocked that it was Herman Cain. But one of the main reasons was that I think that the strategy was that what's his face? Yeah, Romney. I've gotten him already. Has split.
Took you 2 hours.
And gone right out of my mind. You know what? He left. And because people were saying, did he leave? Did he go?
Yeah.
Yes, because his campaign people said that he has somewhere more important to go. So he did, and I think it really hurt him. So whoever comes into Florida, even if you don't think you can win, they're going to have to try. They're going to have to give it their best effort. So from a financial strategy standpoint, it's going to be tough, because you're going to have to spend some money, and you're going to have to make it look like you're giving it your best effort, especially. At the debate, we'll be at Presidency 6, Patriot Action Network, and Liberty News by me will be at the at Presidency 6, covering it for everybody, so you can see exactly what's going on, who all the players are, because it's always a wild time. I'm telling you, it's always a good time. But anyway, this is my first podcast, or my first vlog with the Patriot Action folks. Thank you again for allowing me to do this, Eric. I appreciate it greatly. And we'll be back on Monday covering the things that happened over the weekend that you'll wonder, what the heck? Hopefully what we can do is we can demystify the what the heck, because there's going to be more and more of it. There's going to be a whole bunch of it, as a matter of fact, because that's how it goes as we're cranking through this campaign season into the election season of 2016. plus all the stuff that's going on that may not have anything to do with an election. And Monday, if it's okay with you, Eric, I could talk to you about Bo Bergdahl he's being tried by the Army for desertion. At the very same time, one of the Gitmo 5, it looks like they're back with their Taliban unit. And we're finding out that 20% of the detainees that were released from Gitmo get back to their Taliban, their terrorist unit, so they can get back to the business of trying to kill Americans.
Yeah, I think that would be a great topic, and the neat thing about that topic is that we could actually probably still talk about it because we may not know the outcome until November 10th of 2016 if Obama has his way.
You betcha. You betcha.
Yeah.
Or maybe January 23rd of 2017 if
there you go.
has his way.
Good topic. Well, I did want to add, and thank you for doing this as well. And for those, we're going to put this out on the Patriot Action Network. We'll send it to all 95,000 members. But Willie Lawson is a longtime champion fighter in this movement and has put up with me and my communication shortfalls, which are many. So I owe him a steak dinner, I think. But this is going to be exciting. I really challenge Patriot Action Network members to and non-members, because you're going to see this on. We'll probably put it on Liberty News as well. Sign up for an account on Patriot Action Network if you don't have it. It's patriotaction.net. And then there's a group. I'll have a button up on the homepage for it next week for this podcast. Make sure that you sign up for that as well, because Willie can send out updates, and we'll try to do one or two of these, and he may do more. I'll try to tune into one or two of them a week, and really want to get this thing popping. So don't just listen to it, share it. It'll be YouTube embeddable video. Make sure that you share it, send it around, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks, Willie, for doing this, and just let me know, what days I'd be more than happy to join in and talk with you.
Oh, I can't wait! I can't wait. And folks, like I tell everybody, like I tell all my friends, listen, if you like something, there's a really good chance that your friends will like it too. So go ahead and share it with them. That's how we win this. You know what? We don't have. I mean, we're not Fox News or CNN. We don't have a budget that Eric will tell me about anyway of a few $1 million to promote anything. What we have is each other. What we have is you. Who will tell a friend, who will send a friend a link on Facebook or on Twitter or by email, people who join the Patriot Action Network and do that for sure, who share things back and forth. That's how we get our word out. That's how we make a difference. So it's incumbent upon us to help us. Eric, thank you again for this opportunity. And everybody who's out there who's watching, until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, take care of yourself. We'll see you when you see you. Have a fantastic rest of the evening and a great weekend, Eric, and we'll talk to you next week.